Final game of the regular season. Absolutely nothing on the line on the road without Keyshawn Gilbert. Iowa State gets it done. We're breaking it down today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we're going to be speaking on Iowa State's win over Kansas State this last weekend, a game that had absolutely no major meaning in standings, but meant a lot to the team. Then we're going to talk about Curtis Jones winning Sixth Man of the Year, and finally, we'll talk women's hoops to round things out on today's episode. Before we get that far, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, let's just jump right on into it. Iowa State defeats Kansas State 73-57 on the road. A big win for the Cyclones, if you ask me. Obviously, a big, event. Well, it's not really an event, but Keyshawn Gilbert did not play in this game. Cited for that muscle strain again. I don't think that's the end of the world. I think the Cyclones knew that at the end of the day, this team, or this game rather, didn't have a whole lot going for standings in Big 12 tournament. Could have affected seeding in the actual Big Dance March Madness, but we'd rather have a worse seed and Keyshawn healthier than a little slightly better seed with a more hurt Keyshawn, which at the end of the day we won anyway, so it's not even that big a deal. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I won't mention his name really for the rest of this breakdown. Your point scorers. Curtis Jones, 24, leads the team. Joshua Jefferson had 14. Dishon Jackson had 11. Big game for him. Nate Heisey had 7, along with Momcilovic, also 7 there. And Taman Lipsey was 6. Your starters for the Cyclones in this one, with Keyshawn out, I will mention Joshua Jefferson, Momcilovic, Jackson, Lipsey, and Heisey steps in there. And then we did get some Cade Kelderman, 4 minutes from him. Kansas State only had 57 points in this one. I thought the defense from Iowa State was absolutely stellar. Right away, this team came into the paint and asserted themselves. That was where they were going to get their points in this one. I did like to see that after what we saw against BYU. The struggles points early. I thought that was a great approach. Let's just get the ball on the inside. Higher chance of making it, high chance of rebound, high chance of fouls, all those types of things in there were certainly, I like that shot selection a lot more. I was a big fan of that. This was the third game in a row Iowa State has held their opponent to less than 10 points through 10 minutes. Held Kansas State to, I believe it was 8 at the 10-minute mark in this one. So that defense is showing up. It certainly helped that the Kansas State didn't play necessarily their best game, but nonetheless got it done. That was certainly, it was a big win. I don't think there's any other way to put it. I will, last real statistic here that I think is of importance. Iowa State with 22 points off of turnovers to Kansas State's 6. That's pretty solid right there. Iowa State with only 11 turnovers, 4 of which coming from Joshua Jefferson, and 3 coming from Curtis Jones. The rest obviously mixed throughout the team. Overall, I thought this was a really solid statement win on the road. Kansas State, who came into your house, or our house rather, I suppose, and beat Iowa State earlier in the season. Kansas State, from what I've seen in the post game of that one, it might have been their Super Bowl, and Iowa State just walked out of this one like they were just ready for Big 12 tournament play. So that's always a good sign there as well. I will mention Curtis Jones going 11 of 12 from the free throw line is something that I think we should pay attention to. This team seems to be rolling from the free throw line. That's always a good sign going into March, Big 12 tournament play as well. You want to get as many free points as you can. Team goes 18 to 22 from the line as a whole, leaving 4 points out there. But that's not really the end of the world, at least in this one. And overall, I thought this team has been, shooting fairly well from there. From the three-point line, 7 of 20 on the evening. Curtis Jones goes 3 of 9. Joshua Jefferson hit both of his. I believe that takes his total to 17 for the year. So we're starting I guess I don't want to say we're starting to see more from Jefferson outside, but he just made both of his in this one. That was obviously exciting. Milan got one out of four. Nate Heise actually hit one as well. I thought Nate Heise's game was solid in this one, had a driving layup early, making his presence known as a starter, and got the three-pointer as well. 3 of 5 from the floor. Nothing really else to ask for there, to be completely honest. Showed up, had 4 assists, collected 2 rebounds as well. I thought that was solid, as far as guys that we kind of consider to be bench players. Nate Heise, who stepped up for this one. Brandon Chatfield also made some noise, had 4 points, but I thought they were both really solid plays. And they were assists to the inside that I thought, were really, really solid, indicative that of team play. I thought that was really a good sign. He had 2 rebounds and an assist, but the block he had was obviously stunning. Left hand just extended, boom. I believe it went off the board. That was an awesome block there. I'd like to point out for Cade Kelder in here, 2 assists in 4 minutes. I mean, if he plays, let's see, Taman Lipsey played 36 minutes. So if he played 36 minutes, he was on pace to have 18 assists. That's just an insane ratio right there. Obviously notable. And then to speak on that, 17 assists for the team on 24 field goals. That's where we like to see that. I don't know exactly what that percentage is, but it's pretty high. And that's exactly where I want this team to be, moving the ball around more. We've seen obviously struggles in the half court for Iowa State. Especially I thought in the game against BYU was pretty noticeable, especially late. But nonetheless, if we can move towards that and obviously getting the ball to the inside, that's a great sign. I'll pull up the points in the paint here because I thought I know Iowa State was up early, but I thought overall Iowa State dominated in the paint. A total of 34 points in the paint. Now that does tie Kansas State's, but that's a greater percentage for Kansas State only because they score less. So it's like 34 of 57. Well, you only scored 57. Iowa State goes 34 of 73 from inside the paint. It's about half, roughly, a little bit less actually. And I don't hate that. Let's get as many points on the inside as we can. We've got Jefferson, we got Jackson, we got Chatfield. Those 3 dudes absolutely can get it done on the inside. Jefferson being one of them. Now, if you want to talk on turnovers, something that this team it's struggled with in the past, I think that this game was fine. 4 turnovers from Jefferson. That's going to happen. He's going to have the ball in crowded space quite a bit. I'm not too worried about that. I do, obviously without Keyshawn in, Keyshawn's kind of that other guy that turns the ball over sometimes, and that's fine. It's not the end of the world. But only to have, how many points do they have off turnovers? Only it's 11 turnovers and then only 6 points to come of that. I don't think that's the end of the world. I think that transition defense was solid for Iowa State in this one. Nothing too crazy. The other big thing in this one was obviously the referees and the technical on Nate Heise. That was wild. It is what it is. I'm not really here to talk on the refs, but poor Nate Heise. I mean, he goes out, lights it up with the 3, and then all of a sudden he's teed up. I feel bad for the guy. I don't know how he responded necessarily to that mentally, but I know that if it were me, I'd be like, oh man, you're taking away my mojo a little bit. So I didn't love to see that from that standpoint. But that being said, the refs not really going to touch on that too much. They are there to call the game as fair as they can. At the end of the day, this win for the Cyclones doesn't change their Big 12 tournament seeding. They are locked into the 5. Can't wait to see what comes of that. I believe they play Wednesday at 11:30 or something like. I think it's that. We'll talk more about that coming up this week. But I do think that this was a big confidence win. TJ said we're playing for the name on the front of the jersey, for the back of the jersey. This is a pride game. They came out, they played their hearts out. I thought they played hard. And that's really all you can ask for, especially from, what we've been hearing from TJ in the, this has got to be aggressive. We got to put some effort into this. We're going to really drill this into these guys. And we've seen that over the last few days, what he said in media as far as how their practices have gone. And it seems to have translated to the court. I hope to see in the future more attempts to get the ball to the inside. I think that that's where this team can, kind of just separate themselves, obviously, with Jefferson and his ability on the inside. And then that the movement of the ball, that assist ratio going up. Even if you remember early in the year, Jefferson on the inside, I mentioned great job of, obviously creating separation, creating his own shot, whatever, getting the ball in the rim, but also his vision from the inside and his ability to move it around, I thought was very notable. And so if we can continue to see that in the future as well, that I think that's only a sign of big things to come. That's just me personally. And it is what it is. At the end of the day, though, big win for the Cyclones. Kansas State didn't get the sweep. So now we do have to talk about, however, Curtis Jones, 24 points in this one, leading scorer, had a light them up type of game in this one, 11 of 12 from the line. Notable, but it wasn't just this game that he's been exciting. He was exciting enough to win the 6th Man of the Year award from College Hoops Today. We'll talk about that coming up more right after this. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture to stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. I was looking for a new look to tie my living room together, and Wayfair had so many stylish options at great prices. I head over to wayfair.com and find everything that's just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Iowa State men's basketball is rolling right now, headed into the Big 12 tournament. And to say it's spearheaded by Curtis Jones would no longer be an absolutely outlandish statement. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And College Hoops Today has named Curtis Jones the National 6th Man of the Year. Shout out Cujo. All right. Round of applause for the man, the myth, the legend, making some noise this year in Ames, obviously. We've talked constantly about Curtis and what he's done for this team. But I'd just like to talk a little bit first about the other finalists. Who was he put up against in this, this award that he won? Caleb Grill from Missouri, Tahad Pettiford from Auburn. Obviously, Auburn, one of the best teams in the nation right now. Tennessee up there as well. Jordan Gainey was in this conversation, and Aiden Holloway from Alabama. So for for Curtis to win this award over an Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama player, obviously Caleb Grill notable as well, just says something about how much, it's really at the end of the day kind of about the respect that Iowa State's starting to get. But obviously Iowa State has performed very, very well this year. That's just a statistic, top 10 all year. I don't know how it'll round out when the next poll comes out, but just an unbelievable year for the Cyclones, and Curtis Jones being noticed, coming basically off the bench for most of the year. To take a look at some of his statistics here, averaged about 25 minutes, and in those 25 minutes, solid. I don't know why it's not showing me these numbers, but I am going to take a look at some of the actual games he had, because for me, it was kind of once conference play started that he elevated his game. Obviously was playing in the non-conference schedule, but nothing of super wild numbers. Obviously about that 15 to 20 range, was a solid player, but he hadn't really turned a ton of heads yet. I thought it was once we got into kind of that conference schedule. So Colorado had 20 and then had a down-ish game against Baylor, and then a 3-game stretch where he was over 23 every game, 23, 26, 25. And obviously the Texas Tech game, a huge game, an absolutely huge game. And on Iowa State's resume is certainly a large one as well. Everybody remembers against Arizona State where he had 33, and he just put up 24 against Kansas State to round out the year. Now, there are certainly some games on here. Had a 7-point game, had another 7-point game, had an 8-point game, had a 4-point game against Omaha. That's an odd one for sure. I believe Omaha just made the tournament, so shout out to them. Would love a rematch. Not going to lie. But at the end of the day, Curtis was always out there, always got it done. Solid minute production every single night. On the year, 3-pointing wise, is definitely something that is felt. Remember when he blew off the roof against BYU? It was like a transition 3, just absolutely popped the roof off that place. Didn't get the win, but certainly very, very notable. He makes shots when it matters. And we talked earlier in the year about his percentage in some games where he'd shoot, 16%, that 2 of 7 mark maybe. But towards the end of the year, it's actually gotten better. And against TCU, he shot 5 of 6, obviously a standout performance there. And in the last 2 games, shooting 33%. Obviously the offensive agenda, something that TJ has mentioned. And so I wonder what that means for Curtis. But I do think at the end of the day that Curtis Jones has been an absolute catalyst for Iowa State's wins this year. I think, with averaging 17 points a game, 4.5 rebounds and 2.3 assists, shooting 42%. He's been a guy that has elevated this team because of his ability to come off the bench and treat it as a starter. That's where I think that his greatest kind of strength is. This team really, they call him the 6th starter. So I don't know if he should win this award or not for that reason alone. Not because he doesn't deserve it, just for that, obviously small titling thing that Iowa State goes with. But at the, what I'm getting at here is his ability to come off the bench and to run this essentially 2-team kind of, the way TJ cycles these players so quickly, expecting first-team production from the bench. Cujo has kind of spearheaded that for the Cyclones. He's kind of been that guy to come off and produce like he's a starter. And that has what has gotten this team to where they are, in my opinion. I don't think that the starting position is what has it hasn't played a role, right? We saw when Curtis was kind of starting when Milan was in or when Milan was out, versus when he's been off the bench when Milan's in. This team has been so fluid with now Nate Heisey starting against Kansas State. I think this team can get it done in a lot of different ways. That's something that I've talked about all year. But Curtis's ability to kind of put ego to the side and be like, look, if you want to put me in a few minutes into the game versus as a starter, it's not the end of the world for me. I'll come in, I'll shoot my shot, I'll facilitate in the way that I do, bring the ball up, get steals, whatever. Whatever you need me to do, I am more than happy to do it. And obviously Iowa State has felt that. He's been one of those guys that I think it was him and Keyshawn were on the cover of Slam U. Like, he's just an absolute pillar for this team. And I think he's one of the reasons why they are where they are. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I've said it like 4 times, but I also think it's absolutely true, right? Keyshawn, obviously Taman making Taman plays, but Keyshawn, Momcilovic, and then it's really Curtis Jones that are kind of in that boat of just moving the needle from the outside. Obviously you got Jefferson and Jackson and Chatfield on the inside, but that's a totally different position. Big shout out to Cujo for that. It's obviously the recognition for him is awesome, but also for people to be looking Iowa State's way. And I mean, those are huge names that he's winning this award over. So that's huge for the team, for the university, and moving forward. And he can obviously kind of know inside that was something that he did. He cemented his legacy with the Clones in that way. And obviously that'll have repercussions down the line in a very positive way. But couldn't be more thankful for the season that Curtis has brought to the Cyclones, because this has been a super, super memorable year. And for him to be, this is the 6th man, not of the team. No. Yeah, he was the 6th man of the team, but he wasn't the 6th man of the Big 12. He wasn't the 6th man of Iowa State. He was the 6th man of the year in college hoops. So obviously the recognition is awesome for the university, but for Curtis and everything he did, even bigger. So very much well-deserved for sure. I can't wait to see what he does in the Big 12 tournament. Speaking of the Big 12 tournament, we got to talk about the women. They just wrapped up their time in the Big 12 tournament. What happened there? We'll talk about that coming up right after this. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Iowa State basketball, we've gotten to the kind of the postseason here. Actually, we're officially in the postseason, to my knowledge. More than exciting. Can't wait to talk about what the men are going to be doing. But the women have already completed their run in the Big 12 tournament. Let's talk about it here. We're Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We last spoke on the women after their big win over Kansas State to round out the year. They had momentum. Everything was rocking. Then Iowa State in the second round of the Big 12 championship. I don't know why it says that. Big 12 tournament defeats Arizona State 96-88. Big win there. We'll talk more about the Vox score. But to get things out of the way and keep the suspension out of the air, Iowa State did lose to Baylor in the quarterfinals, 63-69. Obviously, Baylor, someone that Iowa State has faced this year. Didn't get the win last time we played them. Didn't get the win the time before that. So Baylor has figured out Iowa State, and they got the win in the tournament. And then finally, we'll get to it, but Iowa State and their March Madness situation, to my knowledge, looks to be in the last four in per ESPN's latest bracketology prediction. Looking like, per ESPN, will be playing Princeton for that 10 seed, kind of that last four in, type of deal. Now, that being said, let's talk a little bit about what happened in the Big 12 tournament, because Iowa State won't be cutting down the nets there, but they'll get a little bit of rest before March Madness, which is that argument we've kind of been talking about with the men. Is that something that they, not obviously, I don't want it to come across, and this is a slight divergence. Just give me 2 seconds. I don't want it to come across like I'm saying they're going to go in and hope they lose a game. I don't ever want that to happen. I don't want TJ to plan, all right, let's win our first, let's win our second, then let's lose our third game. Anything like that, I don't necessarily think I don't know if that's how it's being perceived, but I want it to be clear. That's not what I'm saying happens. I'm just saying at the end of the day, would it be bad for Iowa State to lose in the in the Big 12 tournament to get some rest? Now, let's put that aside because we're not talking men right now. We're talking women. Against Arizona State, Addie Brown had 41 points. Whew. That's going to be tough for anybody to beat. Then you add Audie Crooks with 20 of her own. Emily Ryan had 12, and Sydney Harris had 12 coming off the bench. The last 11 points came from a mixture of Kelsey Jones and Alyssa Williams, 7 for Jones there. But really an Addie Brown performance against Arizona State, unbelievable there. That's awesome. Then from Arizona State, Jalen Brown and Ty Skinner, they combined for 49 of the 88. So kind of a game of a few players with some assistance, really. Speaking of assistance, 17-27 for the ladies, the Cyclones. 17-27. I don't know what that percentage is. Close to that, I would say, 30 or 66% then, roughly, because it's almost 20 out of 30. Solid there. Obviously got that win. Move forward then against Baylor. This is the one we'll talk a little bit more about. Pretty even scoring for the Bears, but unfortunately for Iowa State, it was a little bit, actually even more lopsided than the Arizona State game. 32 points for Audie Crooks, 6 for Brown, 9 for Emily Ryan, and then 9 for Sydney Harris. Then you had a few points here and there. Alyssa Williams with 2, Kelsey Jones with 2, Ariana Jackson with 3. So that's not quite the same spread. Obviously, Addie Brown, going 2 of 11, not going to help the Cyclones. I'm not trying to say that in a mean way. It's not really helpful more than anything else. Obviously, Audie Crooks, something that the Cyclones were looking towards here, getting 32 of those points. That's great. situation. Obviously, get her the ball. She can score it. She goes 14 of 18, gets 4 at the line out of the 6 she attempted. Solid effort, solid game from Crooks there. But at the end of the day, obviously, Baylor comes away with the win, 69 points. Jada Walker was their leading scorer with 18, but we've talked about Baylor. We don't need to go too much more into it. Really, what I am thinking about here is for the future, because this wasn't a tournament Iowa State needed to win to make the March Madness tournament. No. They're, to my knowledge, to what I've seen, they are in. It's just in a last 4 in type of situation. So we've talked all year about the men, and whatever seed they get, it's not the end of the world because they're going to play the same amount of games as everybody else. Well, remember, that's not necessarily true. I meant it more in the sense that Iowa State isn't going to probably be in the last 4 in type of situation for the men. The women, however, find themselves to be in that spot. They'll be playing an extra game to make the tournament. And right now it looks like it might be against Princeton. And so I wonder if this loss wasn't the end of the world. I do think that this was, you never want to say a loss is a good thing, and you never want to say you're going into a tournament on a loss. Like, I get that. I understand that. But what I'm saying is, when you've got to play an extra game in the tournament, the actual tournament, like, I don't mean this like Iowa State can't win a national title. I don't know if they are gunning for a national title, but to make a deeper run now, to make an Elite 8 run, to make a Sweet 16 run, you need to win an extra game. Okay? And so this is kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise. You got to win that game. All right? Then you move in, and you're probably going to face some tough opponents as an 11 seed, right? You're going to have to probably go through, a 6 and then a 3, obviously the 6, but you never know. Maybe a 14 will win, but whoever's going to be winning those games, obviously a good team. So this is something that Iowa State, obviously, you'd never want to lose. Okay. And obviously Baylor seemed to have figured out Iowa State this year. It's tough to beat a team 3 times, and they got it done. Baylor, a good team. And we'll see what happens with the Big 12 tournament as a whole, not really affecting Iowa State at this point. But this is one where you can take a few minutes, get your head right, figure out what we're going to do going into the tournament, and go make some noise there. Get a few upsets, This is a team that Iowa State, we've talked about it all year. I think they are a good team. I think they're a very solid team. Obviously, Emily Ryan, senior night, everything there. She's got one last run at this thing. Let's make some real noise here. Audie Crooks, another chance, right? Well, another chance for all of them. But this is a team that, like I said, mostly against the Kansas State game was when I was really very loud about this. Like, this team is, early on, I said this team's better than their record. And then against Kansas State, I said this team's able to beat Kansas State. First matchup. They do not get it done. Goes to overtime, falls short, whatever. That's going to happen sometimes. But it was really like, they can do this. They are okay. And we saw that in their second matchup. Granted, home and away, that is what it is. But this team, very capable of winning big-time games. And so I don't think we can count the Cyclones out here. I think we still, obviously coming off a loss, it's tough, but you get slightly more rest than if you were playing, like Sunday and Monday or whatever. This is a great spot. It feels like a weird thing to say, but I don't think this is a bad spot for the Cyclones to be in. To be completely honest, let's just get everybody fresh, go into the tournament with a full head of steam, make some noise. Let's go alert the alarms, if you will, as they say. I've heard it a lot of times. So obviously the men, they'll be going on their Big 12 tournament run here this week, but the women, it's over. Now we're on to March Madness. Okay, we got a real chance to make some noise here with that. And don't count out the Cyclones if you're seeing this from another team. This team is solid. Addie Brown, real threat. Audie Crooks, you just can't really stop her. Emily Ryan, I can't remember the name they gave her, the assist, something with the assist, Dish, something with Dish. It was unbelievable. It was a great name. But, just that assist legend, one of the best point guards Iowa State's had. So look for this team to make some noise in March. Very, very, very possible. Okay. It's definitely on the table, as they say. If you're still watching at this point, not subscribed, what are you doing? We're proving it's a Cyclone State here. We need your help. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.